Hello, matey Thrive Nation. It's all about women's health, skin health, hormonal health, or hormonal harmony, as Dr. Trevor Cates is going to speak about. She's a naturopathic physician. She's an author. She's a podcaster. She's an incredible woman. He was the first licensed naturopathic physician in California. It's a privilege and a warm welcome to you, Trevor.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you.
Brilliant. I want to start with some myth busting thoughts or myth busting, areas on skin because people might think, oh, I believe this about skin health or this is about skin that's really, really important. What are like maybe three or four myths that people are believing out there that you wish you could just bust?
Well, I think a lot of times people don't realize how permeable our skin is, and they don't think about what they put on their skin and how that can actually get absorbed. But if people think about it, it is a form of how we apply medication. So, like hormone patches, hormone creams, nicotine patches, these are we use the skin because it we can absorb things into the bloodstream. So think about all of those products that you're putting on your skin and the fact that they can actually it's not like our digestive tract. We absorb way more through our digestive tract, but still our skin is very absorptive. So that's one myth I think is really important of what we put on our skin, that myth that like it just won't get absorbed. It just stays there. So you don't have to worry about the toxins getting into your body. I
Let me
think
just stop
another
you
one,
there because I
yeah.
think let's do the one and then we'll talk about it. Because from what I
Mhm.
know, there's by the time 9 o'clock comes in the morning, a woman has put 196 chemicals onto her body and onto skin. But how disrupting are those chemicals and those toxins? Because there's a huge energy chasm. And the amount of energy for women to change their products, to use natural products, or to use products with a good probiotic in them, to sort of change the way they've been doing things, whether it's the lipstick or the eyeshadow, is quite significant. People don't really just change. Now, how do they change? They've got to understand the value of putting a good, healthy product, and then they've got to understand the toxicity and the damage that those products are causing. So maybe you can just unpack and expand that.
Absolutely. Well, that ties into another myth, which is that skincare ingredients are harmless and that there's plenty of regulations out there to protect us, which is just, especially in the US, it's really not true. Other countries have better regulations, especially the EU has much higher standards than we do here. But there are this class of chemicals called endocrine disrupting chemicals. And this is one that I focus on a lot because I also do a lot with women's health and hormones. And so these group of chemicals, endocrine disrupting chemicals, they're in a lot of different places in our air, water, food, and personal care products. And the problem is that we're exposed to so many of these, and what we want to do is try and reduce our total load and total exposure to these. And personal care products are one of those places where we have a choice. In other ways, we may not, like
Mm.
where we work and what we get exposed to, we may not have a lot of choice in that, but we do have control over what we put on our skin or the personal care products we use. So that's one of the reasons why I really like to focus on this because it's a place where we do have some control. So endocrine disrupting chemicals means that these are a group of chemicals that can bind to hormone receptors in the body and they can alter the function of hormones in the body. So, for example, if someone's exposed to an estrogen mimicking compound like parabens or phthalates or something like that, these can bind to hormone receptors and estrogen receptors, and the body thinks that it has estrogen in it. So it upregulates and it makes the body behave as if it has more estrogen. So it's been linked to things like breast cancer, fertility issues, early menarche, girls starting their periods early, breast development early, even breast development in boys, and fertility issues in men as well. So it affects really men and women. Thyroid disease, because the thyroid can also be impacted by some of these endocrine disrupting chemicals, obesity, even like hormones regulate so much of our body. So if we're getting exposed to these endocrine disrupting chemicals, it really just throws off the balance of our hormones. And so again, what we want to do is just really reduce our exposure to these. And as I mentioned, a couple of ingredients, parabens, they're estrogen mimicking Phthalates are in plastics, also in fragrance.
Okay, so but is there some real hard science? Is there hard research on parabens and phthalates? Because it would seem that if there was a lot of science, at least some
Sure.
people would know and they would do something about it. It would be on social media. Yes, I mean, we're just trying to fight the food wars in terms of getting all these toxins out of our food. But maybe if there was significant research or meta-analyses on this, it would help the public make a better decision and a better choice.
Yes, so there is some research. Absolutely, we always need more research. And I love seeing when the research aligns with what makes sense when we look at the body and how it works. So when it comes to parabens, there have been parabens detected in breast tumor tissue. And so, and they do, and there's also been research about them estrogen mimicking effects. Now, the problem is we don't know how much is that trigger, right? And there's not research done on enough research on what is that tipping point. And part of the reason is it's just really hard to know because to do a study and the fact that the way we live our lives is that we get exposed to so many things. It's hard to know what causes what. So yeah, we do need more research, but if we look at the science of it and make the connections, I like to look at that ahead of research because I've been practicing for 25 years and I know that there have been these things where like, oh, it's safe. There's no research to show that plastic water bottles are a problem. They're BPA free, so, the other ones are fine. And then, time passes, we're like, oh, wait, there are other things in plastics that we know are endocrine disruptors and these are a problem. So I really like to look at our physiology, the science of it, and anticipate what might come in the future when research unfolds really the problems with it. But we do have some research on this, and we certainly do know about phthalates. And DEP is in fragrance, and it's used in fragrance to help the scent last longer. But there is research on phthalates showing the endocrine disrupting effects.
Okay, cool. So if you're listening out there, your skincare products are important. How important we don't really know, but they might be crucially important to your hormonal harmony, as Dr. Trevor says. It's quite a tough one, Dr. Trevor, because, I've got a little daughter of 9, and I must say, no, like all respect to women, I love my wife, married 25 years, but it's been much, much harder to raise my little daughter than my son. And she says, Dad, I can't eat this. I can't eat that. My friends say I can't have the chips. You can't have this. You're so hard on my diet. Don't do this. Don't do that. I can only have this once a week. I can't go out to my friends. Now you're gonna tell me I can't put this skin on and I can't do that. And so like it's so difficult to pick the poison and focus on something. If you had to choose just a healthy diet versus putting the energy into ensuring a nutrient dense diet first versus the products, would you say generally, as a generalization, probably the food is going to be more important than the skin products from environmental toxins?
Yeah, I mean, as a naturopathic physician, we focus a lot on the inside out approach.
Mm.
And so always say about like skin issues, I think about 80% of it is really from the inside out. And then there's that 20% of what we put on our skin. So I like the inside and outside approach. I think they're both important. But if I had to pick one, yeah, I would say what we consume, what the other, particularly because of the way we absorb things, like I said, through the digestive tract, we absorb that more readily than we do through the skin, but it's still important. And one of the biggest things is we just keep getting exposed to more and more of these endocrine disrupting chemicals, and they're not going away in the environment. They're continuing. We have these forever chemicals that continue to last forever. So just, I think whatever we can do to reduce our exposure. And It's really the things that we do on a daily basis. So the things that your daughter does every day. So what are the products that she's using every day? What are the foods she's eating every day? And if there's an occasional like, oh, she wants to go to the spa with her mom and the products aren't exactly natural, it's okay because our bodies are really well equipped, with our livers, our kidneys, our lymphatic system, our digestive system. We're really well equipped to eliminate a lot of these things. Problem is that some of these don't really leave our bodies very well. And those are the ones that we really want to be mindful of.
Which are the forever chemicals that like are very important that people must be aware of that stay in your body and just don't leave?
Yeah, and they're getting harder and harder to find and avoid because there are things like fire retardants that are in so many, even clothing and household items. But there are also things like heavy metals, lead, mercury, and we've done a pretty good job of trying to remove those from gasoline and paint and over the years and mercury amalgam fillings and those sorts of things. But there's still sometimes trace amounts of them in water, especially like I live in Park City, Utah, and it's a former mining town. There's lead in the water here. And so I see that come up in my patients. So there are, things like that we want to be very mindful of. And I think, when we look at what to focus on, I really like to focus on the positive. Let's focus on the foods to eat. Let's focus on the skincare products to use,
Mm.
the things that are good for you, because yeah, it can really create a lot of stress. And I do think with social media and all of that, with our I've got 3 kids myself. They're now adults, but I've seen the stress of that on them. And there's so much information coming at us. So I really like to focus on the positive rather than don't eat this, don't use that. I mean, you're asking me questions about it, so we'll talk some about that.
Sure.
But I do like to focus on the positive, especially for young people.
Okay. And maybe two or three more myths that people believe that are just need to be busted.
Yeah, so I think there's people don't realize that our skin is our largest organ and that it actually is a reflection of our overall health. So a lot of people will use things topically to suppress skin issues and not realizing the connection of our skin as an organ to the rest of our body. And that when we have acne, eczema, premature aging, all of the things that things can happen with the skin, that it is oftentimes an outer reflection of something going on in the body. So that, a lot of times people think skin is just the thing that's out here, right? That's a myth. We are interconnected beings. And so, as a being. And so we've got this skin microbiome that is so fascinating. And the research that's been unfolding on the skin microbiome and the gut skin connection, the gut brain skin connection is really fascinating. And I think it really does warrant more attention. And I know there's a lot of talk about like leaky gut and how important the gut is. Well, there's also leaky skin, and that ties into the skin microbiome. So, skin is so much more important, I think, than most
Mm.
people realize.
Maybe you want to talk about leaky skin because we've spoken about leaky gut. We've also had a lot of biological dentists talk about leaky gum. Then we've had leaky brain as well, having a lot of, neuroscientists on and neurologists on. What is leaky skin?
Yeah. So our skin has this barrier function to it. If you think about, our skin is on the outside of our body. So it has an important role to play with protecting our bodies from the outside world. So it has microorganisms, it has fat, that has oils, and it has, lots of layers that help protect it from the outside world. And so, but like when we talk about leaky gut, there's that semi-permeable membrane that becomes more permeable than it should, right? Same thing with skin. It can break down in the way it becomes irritated. The microbiome of the skin, those microorganisms get out of balance. So they can't do their role of protecting the skin. The oils of the skin could be stripped down from overexfoliation or improper hygiene practices. And then the skin becomes more irritated. So that's usually how people know that they have leaky skin is it's become super sensitive, irritated, red, inflamed, breaking out. And so a lot of eczema, for example, atopic dermatitis or sensitivity to I see so many people with sensitivity to skincare products. They can't even use natural products because their skin is very reactive. These people usually have leaky skin. That barrier function is just not doing its job.
Sure. Okay. So, I mean, you got beautiful skin and obviously you're walking the talk there, but I've just come back from Europe. And if people think my skin is incredible just for where I'm at, and I say that with humility because when I'm not in Europe and in the sun, it doesn't look nearly as good. My diet, going on holiday, we made an agreement with my family. I got two kids. Listen, we're going to have gelato every day. We're going to have pizza. We're going to have pasta. We're going to let go. So my diet is normally really tight. Being a physician for 26 years here and I've never missed a day's work. So my immunity is really, really strong. But actually, my diet went and I spent more time in the sun and my skin improved. So is there, maybe you can just comment on the role of sun and infrared light, and maybe that's significantly important to people's skin health, and people have become sort of sun phobic. And the fact that, more people get melanomas that are office workers than people that are, outside workers. I think an understanding of the sun and infrared light is fundamentally important. And I'm not saying, I'm not saying trash your diet. It was just interesting that maybe it was my stress that came down, a lot more outdoor living. Yes, the diet wasn't as good, but it would be interesting to hear an overall perspective about the sun and infrared light from yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. A great point. And we have to look at all of these factors together. I mean, when you live a very healthy lifestyle like you have for so many years, you build up a certain amount of resilience and your gut gets really healthy. You've done the repair. So if you get exposed to some things that maybe aren't the top foods for your skin, that you're going to be more resilient. So you're going to not have as many issues with it. But if people have leaky gut, they have leaky skin, they're going to be much more susceptible. So if they were to go and eat the things that you were eating, they probably wouldn't end up with the skin that you have, right? So that I just want to say that first,
Yeah.
there's that certain amount of resilience. But you said that your skin improved, right? You
Yeah,
said that you
and
felt like
dramatically improved. I mean, if I show
yeah.
you just the quality of my arms, the skin, my face, I mean, it's glowing. And yes, maybe I had even a bit more time with my skin range because it's really, really important to me. It's probiotic, rich, organic as possible, natural and I've done the due diligence in that, and eco certified and all those things. But it just seemed that being outdoor and getting sun and obviously not burning, my skin just glowing. So it was an interesting sort of analogy, and I think there is reserve, but I think the importance of infrared and coming from the sun is fundamentally important for skin health.
Yeah, I completely agree. And part of what we want to talk about is vitamin D, right? We do so much, oftentimes covering up, putting sunscreen on, and we're blocking that ability for vitamin D production. And so we definitely need that sun exposure to help with vitamin D because, as you know, vitamin D helps with our immune system, it helps with our skin, it helps us so much, and we need that exposure. Part of also what you're experiencing, like you said, you were having a good time. So, your cortisol levels are dropping. Cortisol is a big contributor to inflammation or skin inflammation, like I like to call it, because that internal inflammation then that causes skin issues. So when we decrease our cortisol and we've got, our hormones, our neurotransmitters, they're all happy because we're happy. That also helps our skin. But I do think that there's really interesting information about different types of light exposure and the importance of that outdoor light versus the indoor light. I think it's a huge thing that we overlook. And I was just listening to one of your podcast guests talking about all of the different types of light. And I think it's something we forget about because, when we eat, we're like we're actively eating, right? When we're applying skincare, we're actively doing what light, it's just there. We
Mm.
walk outside, we come back inside, we turn the lights on, we don't think about it. But I do think we really need to pay attention to that. And I'm a big fan too of first thing in the morning, getting outside, getting exposure to sunlight, because it's not just about our skin. But a lot of the things that we do for our skin health that I talk about in my books are also going to help your health in so many other ways. It's going to help with sleep, right? It's going to help with stress management. So I think that yes, you're absolutely right. I think getting outdoors, not overdoing it with staying in the shade. I had a great aunt who was like completely stayed out of the sun. She was so afraid of sun. She had this porcelain skin. She never went in the sun. She always covered up. When she passed away, she had very few wrinkles, very few wrinkles. But I always wondered, but at what cost, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because getting outdoors, getting in the sun, I'm a big fan of the outdoors and travel. So yes, absolutely.
Okay, so light is important. Infrared light. Well, while we're on light now, do you recommend a biohacking tools of, near infrared? Do you have any sort of protocols regarding light?
I mean, I think that light can be a beneficial tool for using on the skin, and there are lots of different devices that we can use. You want to make sure that they're really high quality. The red, I think, is anti-inflammatory, but they're the full body ones, they're the face ones.
Hmm.
I think that they can be very beneficial for helping with, especially like with premature aging, to kind of slow that process down and overall decreasing inflammation in the skin. So yes.
Okay, cool. And what about sweating on the face? As I'm going through practice and just, through my journey of learning is I'm realizing how important sweating is. And the people that don't sweat is not a good sign from a detox perspective. It doesn't mean that if you do sweat, you're healthy, but what's your view? Because actually in the skin, you do need some detox to happen, not only through your liver and through your colon and your lungs, but on the actual skin itself.
Yeah, I mean, that is another myth is that, or, something that people don't realize about skin. It is a pathway of detoxification is through our skin, through sweating. And so it is really important to sweat, and it actually helps the skin microbiome if we're, perspiring properly. One of the problems though is that people, especially women, use a lot of skincare products that are blocking the ability to sweat. So it's really important, especially when we go to the gym, we go work out, we get outdoors and we're sweating, to be very mindful of certain ingredients. Like there's an ingredient called dimethicone and it traps in moisture. And women use the products because it makes their skin look dewy, it makes their skin look, hydrated, and it does trap in moisture. But the problem is when we go and we get hot, we start to sweat, our skin is now blocked and it can't do that. So then there's this disruption of the skin microbiome that happens under that. I mean, you think about it like putting like saran wrap on your face and how that would feel. I mean, really, we need to be mindful of these things. And then same thing with deodorant or antiperspirant in particular. Antiperspirant blocks that perspiration. And actually research shows that using antiperspirant increases more of the malodorous bacteria. So using antiperspirant makes you smell worse.
Yeah. No.
So instead, using more natural deodorants, using skincare products that don't have dimethicone, that have like natural plant-based oils, they make your skin look dewy and moisturized without trapping that moisture, without
Mm.
blocking that ability to perspire.
Okay, cool. Any other sort of myths that you want to, get into? Because people have, I think the least understood is about skin health and the microbiome and how important the bacteria is, the overuse of these sanitizers, the overuse of all these antibacterial soaps. I mean, it's just killing our microbiome. I got a quick story. My son's a little bit older, but he used to play with the dogs, go outside, and then we used to insist that he washes his hands. Now with my daughter, I say she can go outside, she plays with the dog, and I say, don't wash your hands. I say, our dog's healthy, we know where we're at, you eat, and if you do, you're running out of water, you don't want to eat dirt. But what is your view there on firstly the microbiome and how important the bacteria is, and maybe you can bust a myth there?
Yeah, this is something really big that I've noticed over the 25 years that I've been practicing is this fear, this germ phobia, right? It started with antibiotics, like antibiotics were for everything.
Yeah,
And then, then we disrupted the gut microbiome, right? And then we learned, okay, let's be more mindful of antibiotics, only use them when they're absolutely
yeah.
necessary, when it's a bacterial infection. But that's what's happened also with skin products, these antibacterial soaps and cleansers. Like also, all the products we use to clean our homes are also impacting our skin microbiome. So we're killing off all of these bacteria and trying to kill everything off. And yet now we're seeing more leaky skin, we're seeing more sensitivities, we're seeing more eczema, we're seeing more allergies. So I think we've overdone it. And I do think we need to be more mindful. And another thing that people don't realize is that I think there's this myth that our skin needs to be not only washed all the time of the germs, but it needs to be squeaky clean.
Yes.
So like bars of soap that lather up and
Mm.
then people put them on their face and they have this feeling of, oh, my skin feels free of all the oils and it feels squeaky clean. Well, now you've actually removed all of those oils that help support a healthy skin microbiome because our skin needs those oils to create the right bacteria that protect our skin. And so they're using all these bars of soap. It's one of the things that leads to leaky skin because you're stripping all of those natural oils, or they're using these extreme exfoliating practices. All these brushes and harsh exfoliants are going in and getting chemical peels all the time and all
Mm.
these things. And they're stripping that barrier function. And so I think we just need to calm down and let nature work its way a little bit. So
Mm.
I love what you're doing
Yeah.
with that change with your kids. It's
Yeah.
what we've learned over the years, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I did a bit of research. So you've got a master's now in spiritual psychology. And I want to go into that because I think that's something maybe that my guests haven't heard. But I just think of biblical writings of greet one another with a holy kiss. And obviously, within those cultures, from a biblical perspective, is it wasn't a kiss to entice any sort of type of intimacy or sexual connotation. But just think about the microbiome and the sharing. You're in a church community, you're in a small community. Now you're giving each other a holy kiss. Do you think there's a microbiome related to a family, to within a local community? And the more diverse that microbiome is, and the more there's physical contact, physical touch, kissing, the better and stronger and more resilient that microbiome is.
100%. And the research is now unfolding about this, which is really exciting to see that our microbiome is impacted by the people and animals in our homes and around us. So we can change. It does. So other people in our homes, if they have imbalances in their microbiome, their skin microbiome, it can impact us. If we have others in the home that have healthy skin microbiome, that can impact us. And, if there are pets in the home and there are other things, that actually does contribute to helping support a healthy gut microbiome. I mean, it's gut and skin microbiome. So really the microbiome of the body. But if you think about it, our skin is on the outside. How can we not be interacting with all of those people around us? And if you're interacting with healthy, happy people, I mean, of course, that's going to make an impact.
Mm.
So in church communities or other communities where, you get that healthy, I'm sure that some of their skin microbiome is impacting yours.
So should we greet one another with a holy kiss?
Absolutely. I mean, if nothing else, it's going to boost oxytocin. And oxytocin is that hormone that helps us create connection.
Yeah. Beautiful. Just a quick meme that I just want to ask you about is that my daughter's 9, she goes to school. The teacher says, listen, don't touch those people. They're coughing, they feel sick. You're going to get sick if you're in the same room. And so we're trying to break this mindset, actually, that you're stronger. That a bit of hormetic stress, that a little bit of stress, possibly from that pathological bacteria, can be helpful. So I say to people, I haven't been sick in 26 years. I'm strong. I welcome your bacteria, even if they're healthy or unhealthy, because it makes me stronger. So possibly your words are great. You've written books. What would the meme be? Because, younger people need like a little bit of a meme to remember with regards to how important all bacteria is to get stronger.
Yes, and I think that the earlier we start this, the better. Because when we get that diversity and we get more of that exposure, it does build up our immune system. And using less of the things that kill off all the bacteria, that kill off all the viruses, but actually getting our bodies exposed to them, that strengthens the immune system. And the earlier we start that, the better. Because what happens is if we're constantly suppressing the immune system, if we're constantly trying to avoid these different bacteria or viruses or things, that over time, that's going to make us less resilient.
Mm,
But when you get exposed to these things and you let your immune system do its work, you become more resilient. But unfortunately, what happens is some people don't get that early on, and then they're not resilient. They develop
mm,
autoimmune diseases,
yeah.
and then their immune system's not working the way that it's designed. And then those people, those are the people that sometimes need to be more careful
Yes.
as they're getting their immune system more balanced. So
Mm.
those are the types of people I often see as my patients. So I have to find that balance for them, and get their health back to a place where they are more resilient and they can get back out there and let their immune system do what it's designed to do.
Mm. In fact, I've got to look at a bit of research on what we call townships here in South Africa are sort of, these very poor communities. They've got these steel corrugated iron homes. And I remember in 2020, the concerning factor was once it gets into these townships, once it gets into these very poor communities, it's going to run ravage and it's going to cause so many deaths and so many sicknesses. In fact, those that live so close together, there was no social distancing, there was no all this antiseptic hygienic areas. They were so resilient and their systems were so strong. Yes, they have other problems like typhoid and cholera, but with regards to autoimmune and COVID, they were super resilient.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I mean, there's also a genetic component that makes some people more susceptible. And we know too that part of it is what we're learning is these environmental toxins can get passed along in our genes, trauma can get passed along in families. So if you're coming into this world with a lot of that, then those people aren't going to come in as more resilient,
Mm,
and you're going to need to do a lot more work. So I think it's confusing for people because they're like, why is this person
mm,
so sick from COVID? And why did this person get it and didn't have any
mm,
problem? Well, we have to look at these things like environmental exposures, genetics, and a lot of different factors in their environment.
mm.
And I think it helps support what I really am leaning to at this point in my life is thinking about legacy medicine and thinking about how we're living our lives
Mm,
and how that can impact future generations,
mm.
and cleaning up, doing what we can to clean up the environment, reducing our exposures, and cleaning up trauma, the trauma that we've been exposed to, so that we don't pass that along,
Yeah.
and encouraging our kids to do the same.
Sure, sounds incredible. So let's talk about spiritual psychology because I think that's mindset's very important. And probably, my viewers and listeners haven't heard of it. But let's talk about the immune system, hormonal harmony with regards to, your spiritual psychology framework.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we can talk about the human body and the physiology of it, but there is this other aspect of spiritual psychology, and that I went and did, because what happened is it was about 10 years ago that I did the spiritual psychology program. Maybe it's 12 years now. But I was seeing patients and I would say all the things, eat these things, do these things, let's do these labs, take these supplements, address these root causes. and they would get so much better. But there was this point where they also then would go back to old habits.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is it? So I went and did this master's degree in spiritual psychology to help me understand what is it that's happening with people? Why did they hold on to these habits? Why can't some people really move forward? And what I mean, I learned a lot about limiting beliefs and how we buy into these, and that we also need to have a sense of our connection to purpose. And if we don't have a sense of purpose, and if we feel like the world is all upon our shoulders and we don't have God or, a higher sense of purpose, then it can feel very daunting, and it's hard to let go of those limiting beliefs of like, I need this food to make me feel happy.
Mm,
I can't change my diet because my life is miserable, and I really need my milk chocolate every day, or whatever, my
mm,
cupcake. I don't know, whatever it is, or um, and so I think that if we can realize that we're not alone, that there is this, whatever you want to call it. For me, it's God, right? For others, it might be universal wisdom, whatever it is. But knowing that we're not alone and that there is a higher purpose for us, there is a sense of that lifts the burden. And I think that there's also the physiologic connection of what happens when we have that sense of relief. It's going to decrease cortisol. It's going to create more, if we can create more human connection too within communities, like you were talking about, then also that can help with like our
mm.
oxytocin and help with serotonin and a lot of these things that then make us feel like we belong here
Yeah.
and help with mental health. And then all of that, then it goes, is going to actually help the skin. I know that sounds like it might be, a lot of people might think, I never thought that my skin was related to, spirituality. I do find that there is this important connection.
No, and I do want you to expand on that. I've gone so far as to, because I've learned a lot between my two children, just because there's a bit of an age gap. And so I come home very sad on a Friday afternoon because it's Friday, and I'm very excited on a Monday morning. And my daughter goes to school and says, my dad's favorite days are Monday morning. He loves Mondays. His acronym is TGIM. Thank God it's Monday. And it's like, oh my goodness, work is bad and weekends are good and holidays are good. And they are, but even just the understanding and the frame that work is, so bad and the week is so stressful and we're waiting for weekends and we're waiting for holidays, even that needs to be shattered, because I think a lot of people will continue with their transformation if they understood it's linked to their purpose and the value that they bring to this world, to themselves, to their families, to their friends. So maybe speak into that, because we do talk about sustainable transformation at Made to Thrive, and patient upon patient goes, get a diagnosis, struggles, puts things in place, and a year later, many of them are back to their old ways. So maybe unpack that, because I think mindset and linking purpose is very important for people's gut and skin health.
Yeah, completely. I know. And it's a part of it is this sort of shift in perspective, right? And it's not always easy to do that. That's why I talk about limiting beliefs first, because if we're aware of our limiting beliefs, like I'm only happy on weekends, right? That's a limiting belief. Why do you feel
Mhm.
like you can only be happy on
Yeah.
weekends? Like you and I don't feel
Yeah.
that way. So we know it is possible. And so what is your limiting belief? And is it really true? Can you let go of that? Like, what if the opposite was true? What if the weekday could be just as much fun as the
Yeah.
weekend, right? So first we have to be aware of those limiting beliefs, because to just pivot all of a sudden, it's hard for people to do that. So first I work with people on getting rid of those limiting beliefs, being aware of them, and then like, is that really serving you? And then once you let go of that, then it opens up a door to seeing something completely different. And if we could find the sacredness in every moment, it's so amazing that we're here and that we get to live this life. And so even doing laundry, and I know I'm not necessarily I don't like the folding part. I don't mind putting the laundry, but the folding part. So I have to remind myself, This is a sacred moment. I get to fold laundry. Like this is, taking every moment of like, wow, this is amazing. And it can be a stretch. It could take a while, but it is possible. And when we do that and we don't walk around like, oh my God, I have got to do this housework. And I think for me, that was one of the things that was hard because I grew up with a mom that was a little overwhelmed. My mom is amazing. She's fantastic, but she was overwhelmed by all the work and the housework was
Yeah.
always a big burden to her. So I kind of took that on and then realized like, wait, that's my mom's. That's
Mm.
not mine. I don't
Yeah.
need to be, and I also can get help, right?
And
Like get my kids involved and I don't have to do it all alone, right?
yeah, that's really powerful. And do you do a questionnaire or do you use a psychologist or counselor in your practice to find these limiting beliefs? Because I think that's really a very important part to the whole healing journey.
Yeah, and I do this work with healthcare providers too. I do mentoring for
Mm.
healthcare providers because I find that they have a lot of limiting beliefs too. And they're going to help all these other people, but if they have their own limiting beliefs, that makes it harder for them to see it in their patients. So I do this work with practitioners too. And so I do most of it just by talking through it. I do have workbooks and things that I can have people do. I do guided visualizations too that really help bring this awareness to the surface. And what I lead people through, and when I do these guided visualizations, they sort of just come to me. I'll just close my eyes and I lead people through it. And sometimes it's like seeing doors that are closed. Like what is that door that's closed? And part of it brings in a little bit of their subconscious of maybe things that they're not even aware is a limiting belief
Mm.
and sometimes it surprises them what's behind that door and that this other door then opens to other possibilities.
Mm. Well done to you. I mean, spiritual psychology, looking at limiting beliefs, taking it from that root cause mindset, maybe childhood trauma. That's amazing. That is absolutely incredible. So well done to you. I know I'm going to get a lot of questions about foods to eat for your skin. So maybe we can look at the things you should eat and the things that you shouldn't.
Yeah, again, I like to focus on the positive. I like to focus on the things. Let's focus on the things that are really nourishing for our skin. But first, I just want to say, there are some foods that will be trigger foods, especially for people with leaky skin that already have skin issues that maybe aren't as resilient, and maybe their immune system's not working well. Their gut is out of balance. Sugar is one of the big triggers for people with skin issues, and of course, again, it's interconnected. So sugar oftentimes creates a lot of inflammation. It speeds up the aging process. So sugar, want to be careful with that one. Dairy is another big trigger for a lot of people with skin issues, and also gluten can be in grains in general. But I do talk about these foods in my book, Clean Skin from Within. I have a whole list of foods to avoid for 10 days because that's about how long you need to really get it out of your system. And then you can reintroduce some of these foods back in and see if it's really a problem for you. There's also food intolerance or food allergy testing that people can do to know which foods are really a problem. But I would say if you're going to do any testing, you really want to make sure your gut is in a good place because if people have leaky gut or gut dysbiosis and they do a food intolerance test, then most likely it's going to show all kinds of
Yeah.
reactive foods that may or may not really be the issue
Mm.
for them. So I like to do the gut work first and then do those sorts of tests and just avoid the typical trigger foods. But I mean, I've seen people, my own daughter has an allergy to arugula. Like she gets tingling and rash around her lips when she eats arugula. So I mean, there's so many different foods.
Yeah.
It's hard to know and it's very individual. But there are tests to find out
Yeah.
what are maybe those trigger foods.
Mm.
But again, let's focus on the ones that are really good for your health. Antioxidant rich foods, so colorful fruits, vegetables, legumes, grains, though anything that's really colorful naturally, those are going to help provide antioxidants, which help with protecting against oxidative damage, which then helps also with decreasing inflammation. And then also eating lots of colorful fruits and vegetables when we eat a variety of the rainbow and we eat a variety of produce, it also helps our gut microbiome, which then in turn helps our skin microbiome. So colorful fruits and vegetables, that's really important one. Also gives you a lot of fiber, and fiber helps our gut health and then in turn helps our skin. And also fiber helps with balancing the blood sugar, and blood sugar imbalances are one of the big root causes behind skin issues because that can create inflammation, create glycation issues in the body. So then another big thing are the healthy fats. So omega-3 rich fatty acids like from wild Alaskan salmon. Other great oils are like from avocados, or also a lot of people do well with coconuts. Some people don't do as well with coconuts, but certainly avocados do well with for most people. Um, Avocados and olive oil, those kinds of oils are really great because we need healthy fats from the inside out. And a lot of it's interesting, a lot of the things that I recommend for patients to take internally, I also put in the Spa Doctor skincare products because a lot of us are also topically good for our skin. So these plant-based oils, those healthy fats are also good to apply topically. So antioxidants and healthy fats. Also, collagen-rich foods are another great thing to help support the skin, especially as we get older and we have less, as our collagen is breaking down. Collagen-rich foods like from bone broth, gelatin for people who eat animal protein products. For people who don't do animal for maybe philosophical reasons, whatever, eating lots of vitamin C rich foods helps support our collagen also. And collagen is not only important for the skin, but it's also important for our hair, our nails, our gut, our joints. So again, as we age, we really need things that support our collagen. So those are some of the things that I really think are important to get in our diet to help
Mm.
with the skin.
I think you've also mentioned before astaxanthin being quite important as well for the skin.
Yeah, astaxanthin is a really great antioxidant, and it's actually in wild salmon. It's in salmon. It's what it gives it that kind of pink color. And so astaxanthin is a potent antioxidant that helps protect the skin from the inside out when it comes to like sun exposure and the potential damage to the skin. Astaxanthin is really great for helping with that inside out kind of protection.
Brilliant. And then just the last one before we close out is any sort of other biohacking tips that you've felt have really been good, like peptides. There's a big move to this topical peptides, possibly ozone therapy, which we found has been very, very good for the microbiome, even using ozone enriched olive oil on the skin, maybe things like hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Anything that's your favorite or you found really beneficial with your patients?
Yeah, I mean, I think that really, when I go back to those daily practices that we have, those are really important. And I think a lot of the skincare products out there aren't as great for a number of reasons. Some of them contain a lot of toxins. Some of them don't have the right pH to support our skin. So our skin is mildly acidic, which helps support the skin microbiome. And so when we're using bars of soap, when we're using foamy cleansers, when we're using moisturizers with a high pH, we're actually disrupting that balance. So using skincare products that actually have that mild acidity and cleansers that don't strip the skin, and those are the daily things we're doing. So it's really important morning and night to be using these. And so that's an important foundation. And that's what we do at the Spa Doctor. We make sure that we have products that have the right level of pH. And then we can also then add And then we can also then add in things like peptides and plant stem cells and things like that, then that really help support the skin. And I do think that over time, using skincare products with peptides can be very beneficial. I also am a big fan of like PRP facials and or vampire facials, those are what they're sometimes called. And that is when do you want me to explain what that is?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
So
did in the practice a lot. I've done for today, so I think it's really important.
Yeah, so you go in and you get your blood drawn, and then they spin your blood and they take the platelets from that, and so it's what's kind of at the top of when they spin it. They put it on your face, and then they do microneedling over top to really draw it in. And I think microneedling alone could be really great to help support collagen. But when you do it with the PRP or even stem cells too, so there's some great information coming out about stem cells, and, and it's, you have to be mindful of where the stem cells are coming from and all of that, and the regulations, but that can be really great because it drives it into your skin. And then also some doctors will also do then certain areas they will inject the PRP or stem cells and those certain areas. I find this particularly good for acne scarring. I wouldn't recommend it for anyone who has active acne breakouts because we need to take care, calm down that, address, usually there's gut issues there, calm down the inflammation. But once people no longer have the active acne breakouts and, it's not as severe, and really what's left is the acne scarring, I find it really beneficial for that. And also for, you know, I'm not gonna say we want to stop the look of aging, but it does give kind of more of a youthful good look, and it does help with like fine lines and some of the wrinkles if you do a series of treatments for those.
Brilliant. Let's leave a message of hope just for people listening out there. I've never seen people's skin in the condition that it's been since COVID. It's obviously a lot of stress, cortisol, just, the state of the world and where it's going. Although there's a collective consciousness that is rising, maybe just leave people that are thinking out there, wow, is it possible to get my skin really good? I've really struggled for so long.
Yeah, I know it can be really overwhelming. And I could say I've seen so many patients that have tried everything and they get really frustrated, embarrassed. I mean, that's what led me into naturopathic medicine, where my own skin issues as a child. I had really bad eczema and it was miserable and I didn't feel like a normal kid. And I thought when I was in the middle of it, I thought hopeless because conventional medicine wasn't really giving me any options. But I can say that there are answers and there are ways to get through this, really addressing the root causes rather than just using a band-aid approach and suppressing the symptoms. But start by doing something. Don't get frozen in the overwhelm. It's easy to do that and just give up, especially if you've had a lot of naysayers. People say, "Oh, you're just going to have to suffer with this." Don't believe that. There
Mm,
are answers out there. Just start making some sort of step forward.
brilliant. And where can people get your book, Clean Skin from Within, and just connect with you?
Yeah, so Clean Skin from Within and also my second book, Natural Beauty Reset, are available on Amazon or really a lot of places where books are sold. They can also go to the spadoctor.com, THESPADR.com. That was the company I founded with skincare, hair care, and supplements. And then my personal website for my practice and for helping healthcare providers is drtrevorcates.com.
Mm. Well, if you've been listening to the show, you've got to check out the YouTube clips, check out the social clips, because Dr. Trevor Cates not only has the most beautiful skin, she's got a beautiful soul and a beautiful energy. And just seeing her express herself, the care that she has for people, the time, the energy she's put in, someone who's a naturopathic physician who went and did a spiritual psychology master's just so that she could look at root causes from a different aspect. Just want to absolutely say thank you, that you may rise up in your calling, that you may go to places and spaces to help as many people as you can and leave the legacy in your own family, your own community, and in the nations around the world, because we need more people that carry the energy and the zeal for people to see them thrive.
Thank you.